Hey, folks, good evening and welcome to the show, Phantoms and Monsters Radio. I welcome all new listeners and members to the channel, as well as first timers in the chat. Now, before I get going here, I want to mention, as a result, and people have been asking me about this for the past couple days, as a result of the airing of the Mothman Revisited episode of season 4 on Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix. The producers of the show collected reports from viewers and forwarded the information to me. There were a total of 130 plus reports, of which about 30 to 40 of them were from the Chicagoland region. So that's what I've been doing the past 2 days. I've been contacting witnesses and leaving messages and sending emails. And a few people has already got back to me, but I imagine it's going to get pretty busy this weekend. As well, Chicago Tribune, the Milwaukee Sentinel Journal, and a few other newspapers in the area are doing Halloween stories next week, and I'm going to be talking to a bunch of them on Monday as well. They contacted me because, for whatever reason, they, Mothman and Halloween, I guess, go together up there. So anyway, the witnesses have been contacted for us to establish and confirm the details of those sightings and encounters. And of course, I've been posting some of them, but if we get further details or further information, I will add them to the reports. We also got a lot of worldwide inquiries as well. A lot from Great Britain, quite frankly. So as well, when I post, all this can be found on the Chicagoland Winged Humanoid Regional Interactive Map. And I've got the link to that on the blog. So if you go to phantomsmonsters.com, you'll find it there. Now, like I said, I'm going to eventually put all these shows into a show or more shows as early as I can. And in fact, if I get enough, I may actually start doing it next week. So I'll let you know. So now, tonight, this episode will contain a few of the more bizarre, unexplained, and somewhat creepy reports that have been received since the previous weirdest of the weird episode. Every so often I will set aside an exceptional account, which I will then present to y'all on the show. Again, feel free to comment on the accounts and let me know your opinions. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started, and I'll see you on the other side.
We live in a reality of phantoms and monsters. They exist among us, and sometimes they win. Even the devil was an angel once. The world has its own rules, and these rules are not human. Some of us seek answers to the origin and existence of cryptids and the unexplained. Join us as we venture beyond the known and accepted boundaries. Welcome to our nightmare. I think you're going to like it.
So I want to mention that this channel was made possible by you clicking on the subscribe and like buttons and by you sharing our programming. Super chat and super thanks donations are always appreciated. You can click the dollar icon located below the chat box. The Buy Me a Coffee link is also shown below. So thanks for your consideration. Now, your comments are always welcome. Tell me which accounts you find interesting in the presentation. or suggestions for upcoming shows. I want to again thank our chat moderators, Bernadette, Marla, Thomas, and Mike for their commitment to me and the channel. Thanks again. Now, if you're in the chat and you have a question, please use all caps, and I'll try to get to each one of those after the presentation. So this first account, an eyewitness contacted me after finding a cryptid canine report that I posted from Michaud State Forest here in Pennsylvania, not far from me, just down the road. Now, the location there is called Dead Woman Hollow, and it's well known for its creepiness. So the witness states, "Hi, Lon, I recently found your post about the Dogman encounter at Dead Woman Hollow. I thought that I would contact you about the creepy experience I had there. It happened about 8 years ago in Michaud State Forest in south central Pennsylvania. It was a charming fall day, and I stopped at a little roadside pool for a hike, which turned out to be Dead Woman Hollow. It was a snowmobile trail that intersects with the Appalachian Trail. I set off walking, and I was so relaxed and really enjoying the hike until I turned around and started back. Now, as I was walking back, I got this awful feeling that I was being watched and even pursued. At one point, I felt what seemed to be a handful of smallish rocks hit the back of my leg, and I turned around expecting to see a couple of kids being funny, teasing a lady along the trail, but there was no one there. I brushed it off, but the feeling of being watched increased until it was all I could do not to break into a run. Now, I made it back to my car fine, but the feeling I experienced on Dead Woman Hollow really shook me. Of course, I later Googled Dead Woman Hollow and found out about the horrible murder shooting that happened there in the 1980s. I honestly wondered if I had been picking up on that incident somehow. I'm not psychic or anything at all. Over the years, though, I must admit I've wondered about Sasquatch as rock throwing and feelings of being watched or associated with sightings. Anyway, Dead Woman Hollow can get creepy. Now, she was referring to a post I had made a long time ago. And actually, it was back in 2015, 2016. Well, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and read that post and get an idea of what that area is like. It was in August of 2015. The witness states, "My husband and I began sitting around a fire pit at my sister's cabin shortly after dusk. There was no one else present the entire time. As always, we were both armed. We also had a spotlight and were about 20 feet from the front door of the cabin. We both have been avid outdoor people all our lives, with many hours hunting various wildlife, trapping, fishing, camping, canoeing, and hiking. My husband began playing around, yelling weird sounds to get a reaction out of me because I was nervous for the first time out of all the times I had been there for some reason. To our surprise, something answered him from what I want to say within 100 yards of the woods, with the same sound he made. He stopped, and we sat silently looking and listening to what it was. No more jokes. The yells, probably 5 in total, came closer for a few hours until the last one heard clearly was within 50 yards of us. It was with that I decided to go inside. Now, I had been shining the spotlight intermittently through the evening into the woods, and thought I would do so one last time as we both walked towards the cabin. That's when I saw something for the first time, yellow eyes. It didn't look away or blink, but remained staring back at me from the area where the last yell came from. I tried to see its body, but everything else was dark around it. When I said, "I see eyeshine," to my husband, the eyes moved several feet sideways, staring at me the whole time, then disappeared completely. Now, I have spotlighted deer and various animals, and this was not the same. They were at least twice the size of a deer's eye, and there was no indication it had turned its head or walked away, but instead gave out the impression of stepping behind something. Once inside the cabin, we retired for the night, with the bed being positioned directly under a window that was left open for ventilation. Now, my husband slept undisturbed throughout the night. I, however, heard what sounded like wood chopped 6 different times. I clearly heard a loud crack close by. The next morning, I walked to the area of the last vocalization I shined down a path. I found the biggest tree about 5 feet off the path. It was too big to put my arms around. I noticed a clear line from the tree to the path of disturbed leaves, as if something walked to the tree and then returned the same way. None of the other leaves around were disturbed except the line continuing across the path in an opposite direction to thick cover. I also found a freshly broke tree limb about 10 inches diameter, about 4 foot long, lying in the path. All this within 10 square feet. It appeared to come from a live tree nearby and had been broken off several feet above my head. I had every intention of investigating the scene even more, but frankly, lost my wit, which is not like me, and returned to the fire pit to tidy up. I knew all this was abnormal and didn't feel right. That's when the most frightening thing happened. My attention was brought back to the big tree by loud signs of something big moving fast towards me from the cover where the line of disturbed leaves was. I saw the foliage move closer as I ran inside the cabin. I am sure I couldn't have been but a second or two away from seeing it burst out into plain view, which is exactly what I didn't want. So, what I would like to know is what mimics people's voices, has large eyes that shine yellow at night, hide behind big trees, make wood chopping sounds, break off big limbs off of live trees, and charges at people in broad daylight. Thank you for your time and consideration. I hope to find it somehow helpful. Now, of course, we were collecting reports for Pennsylvania Dogman and Upright Canines. No doubt to me that whatever was out there stayed out there and chased her back into the cabin. Now, you know, this area has the Appalachian Trail traversing through it, and there was a murder near there, which is Dead Woman Hollow. The woman's name was Rebecca Witt, but it got its name from the fact that a woman whose identity is no longer known was bitten by a snake and died there. Now, after she was found by the natives, after she was found, the native Indians or indigenous people in the area and the road were called Dead Woman Hollow. There was also a movie made about it that was called Dead Woman's Hollow in 2013, which talked about the woman passing away. Anyway, the witnesses most likely had a run-in with a upright canine, because we have had upright canine sightings in the area, as well as Bigfoot. Normally when you see the yellow eyes, that's what you're talking about. But, you know, we've had reports all throughout Micho State Forest, and it's a huge area. But then again, I'm not going to discount the fact that, you know, it could have been anything, but I think that's what it probably was. So, anyway, in this next account, the submitter tells a story that they had heard from the father, who was Hungarian, had no explanation for what he saw. He states, "So my father has spent most of his life in the forest. According to my grandmother, it was kind of normal that my father went missing for 2 to 3 days in our local forest at the age of 6. He spent these days walking around enjoying nature. Now, after my grandmother realized they couldn't really stop him, it had become a regular thing. His love of nature has stayed with my father for his whole life. He still goes out hunting and camping regularly. I'm telling you this To give you some context, he has spent his whole life in nature. He knows every sound and recognizes every animal. He told me this story for the first time 15 years ago. Now, as a skeptic, I didn't pay much attention to it, as I believed to be a story he came up with to entertain or scare us. I started to take it seriously because from time to time he retold this, and every detail stayed the same. And he was visibly nervous during the tale. He's not easily scared, so I feel like I can trust him with this, and I can believe the story. So here's the story, the encounter. So one time he spent the night in the forest with his dog, a dachshund, trained for hunting. He was walking down a road separating two parts of the forest. He then realized that his dog, who walked in front of him, had stopped walking and ran back to him and sat down between his legs. Then my father saw that someone was coming from the forest. He believed it was someone on the back of a horse because he only saw the reflections of an eye, but they were way too high up to be a walking person. Then he realized the eyes were way bigger than a normal human. He said they were the size of tennis balls, and they were also far away from each other. He noticed that the creature was looking around because the reflections disappeared and reappeared as if it was turning its head. And when the creature saw my father, or at least acknowledged his presence, it fixed his eyes on him and came out from the trees. Now, according to my father, it was levitating. It was at least 50 centimeters or 20 inches off the ground. It made no sound. It was skinny, but it was wearing some type of robe or clothing. So there was nothing else to see besides the eyes that appeared to be a mix of red, brown, and gray. He compared it to the Dementor from the Harry Potter films. Now, the creature did not confront my father. It simply levitated across the path and disappeared into the woods on the other side. This is weirder than it seems, since that side of the forest is just a narrow 3 by 4 meter wide region of trees. After the trees, there's a concrete fence to separate the forest from a factory. Now, after this encounter, my father turned back because he didn't want to risk his second meeting. He spent the rest of the night in a different area. And in the morning, he went back to check for trails, but the creature had not left any signs of its presence, no footprints, and nothing at all. This happened in Hungary in 2002. So this next account, a native Dene Navajo relatives are driving through the reservation at night when they encounter coyotes and owls along the way. Fearing evil, they are saved by an ancestral spirit. Now, this came out of Arizona. This happened like 15 years ago when I was 17 years old. I was with my sister, her husband's sister, and 2 cousins who were brothers. We were driving back from Cortez, going through the mountains near Steamboat, Arizona. It was late at night, and all we could see ahead of us was darkness and tall trees. We were in a medium-sized white pickup truck. I was sitting in the front of my sister with her husband, while the others were sitting in the truck bed. Suddenly, a coyote ran out in front of us. We started to say a prayer because this is bad luck. We continued driving because I don't know how long 3 separate coyotes crossed in front of us. We were starting to become frightened. Then, right after the last coyote crossed, we started seeing owls. Owls are very bad luck because this means that someone in your family will get hurt badly. It's a Navajo thing. Well, we saw 6 owls altogether. The weird thing about that was there were 6 of us. The night grew darker and longer, but we were near home. We pulled all over for some reason, so I jumped into the back, and one of my cousins got out and went up front. Not soon after that, we were like 5 minutes away from the house on a dirt road. We could see the house, and we were going like 30 miles an hour, when suddenly something big and black jumped in front of us. We hit that thing so hard that the front of the truck crumpled up from side to side. When we realized what had just happened, we got out of the truck to look around. What was weird is that this thing jumped out on the right side of us, but there was this big fence blocking the whole side of the road. We went to check out the front of the truck. We looked around but saw no evidence that we had hit anything other than the damage to the truck. We started to get the truck started, but it wouldn't turn over and only one headlight was working. So we shined the light out there trying to see whatever it was we hit. We couldn't find anything, no footprints or blood drops anywhere. Now, from the distance, we started hearing two people laughing and whistling, running around us and hiding in the shadows. We knew that these were witch people, and we just started praying in Navajo. 15 minutes went by, and they were still laughing, an evil, scary laugh. Then one of the cousins decided to run back to the house to get help since we were not far away. Now, while we were waiting, we noticed that we could only hear one person around us. We were scared and didn't know what was going to happen. Then in the distance, we saw truck lights turn on and heading towards us. We were so happy. The cousin that ran to get the help told us that he was being followed while heading towards the house. He said he could hear the person running in the shadow near him. He also said that when he was running by the empty water tank, you could hear the laughter echoing off the tank. When we got back to the house, we called the police. We told him what had happened. He told us to take him where it happened. The truck was still parked there with one headlight on. He used his flashlight to look around for whatever it was we hit, but he couldn't find anything. No footprints walking away. I mean, we hit that thing so hard that it should have died, but we just couldn't find it. While we were telling the police officer what happened, we got this strong sense like he didn't want to be there. We didn't either. Now, the following day, we called in a medicine man to have a prayer ritual done. While we were in the Hogan, he was reciting his prayer. He was using his crystal to see what happened the night before. He told us that he saw all 6 of us lying around the truck, dead and disfigured. He said the thing was the ancestor's spirit that saved us from a certain death from the witches. When we stopped the truck, we interrupted their ceremony and we had angered them. They shapeshifted and chased the truck on our way home. The spirit caught up with the skinwalkers and stopped their intended attack. I will never forget that night. Now, a Rogersville, Pennsylvania witness with his 2 brothers describes a bizarre encounter with 3 supposed dog women. One of the brothers approaches the beast and feeds them. So, the witness states, I had a run-in with dog women when I was 15. I'm 29, so I want to say the year was 2011. This took place in Rogersville, Pennsylvania in Greene County. We lived in a double wide that my parents had converted into a little cozy home complete with a basement. The only neighbors we had at the time were the high school, which was literally walking distance from the road, and a farmer further on the other end of the road. We lived in a rural area for most of our lives. Behind our house was thick, dense woods. In front of our house was a big yard with a pampas grass bush down by the driveway. And to the side of the house was open field with lush green grass and an apple tree. There was also a creek and a stone bridge that was attached to our driveway. This was in the middle of winter. We were right in the middle of Christmas break from school. Christmas is literally just days away. Mom worked overnight as an LPN and Dad worked overnight as a fuel truck dispatcher, so my brothers Zach, Wyatt, and I had the whole house to ourselves for the night. Now I was in the living room watching a larva on my laptop on a TV tray in front of our living room recliner, feeling a bit pooped out. I had just worked my butt off at weightlifting practice and had just got home. Now, my brother Zach was lying on the couch. He had a rerun of lost tapes on the big screen TV in our living room. He'd been big into the paranormal since we were little kids. Now, all around him, he was having an absolute junk food buffet. On both hands were both halves of a huge meatball hoagie from the little convenience store in town. 2 more hoagies on the coffee table in front of him. Now, he was 250 pounds in a heavyweight class in wrestling, so he was allowed to indulge a little bit. I was at 170 pounds and had to work my butt off to even keep lean and mean athletic physique. Wyatt was in his room playing Kirby Mass Attackers and Nintendo DS. We didn't do any sports. He didn't do any sports, So he was usually home before us or was at play practice. He was a big theater kid. Now, halfway through the episode of Larva, my brother Zach lets out the biggest gasp of excitement. He just gets this big smile on his face, sits up on the couch, and starts getting giddy. I asked him what got him so excited. He just points at the living room window without saying a word further. I turned around in the recliner to see what he was looking at, and my eyes felt like they were about to bulge out like Looney Tunes style. Standing on our porch was just a beast of a dog woman with her face smushed up against the window. Now, I've watched enough Monster Quest and other paranormal shows with my brother Zach to know about what every cryptid is supposed to look like by heart at that point. Her hot breath fogged up the window. Her bright blue eyes locked right on the junk food buffet that Zach had going on. Her legs were super muscular. Imagine a big muscly leg quads some of those female bodybuilders have, and then double that. Her biceps even had biceps. Very big chested, big breasted. Super strong looking stomach too. It must be 7 to 8 foot tall. Her head about scraping up to the porch awning. She had to kneel to get down and get a good look. She had silver gray bushy fur like a coyote. Her eyes were blue though. I'm just sitting there on the verge of a full breakdown at what is happening. My heart beating wildly in my chest, about to just bust out of my chest with how fast it's beating. Zach asked if it wanted a snack, even shaking both halves of the meatball hoagie in the air a bit. To my surprise, this beast let out a begging sound and gave big puppy dog eyes like a dog does when it sees you eating dinner. He gets up, grabs the other hoagies, and runs to the kitchen to grab some of the massive mounds of packs of hot dogs in our fridge. There was a big sale, and then Mom and Dad went crazy and bought a bunch for some reason that week previous. Even though we were probably never going to use them, they'd probably gone bad. I look at him like he's out of his mind because I know he's not about to go out there. I get up to follow him. I keep yelling and yelling at him not to go what I think, or not to do what I think he's about to do. Now, all this commotion lured Wyatt out of his room. He's asking what the hell's going on. He quickly put 2 and 2 together and tried to help me hold back Zach from bull rushing the door, fearing nothing now, I guess like any sane person would. But sadly, he outweighed both of us. With Wyatt being not much bigger than me at 160 pounds, he easily barreled past us out onto the porch wearing nothing but his Star Wars t-shirt, some pajamas, and a pair of slippers. We huddled up against the living room window, fully prepared to watch our beloved brother be mauled by a monster before our eyes and us not being able to stop it. But to our surprise, it never happened. He just kept going. Dalton, Wyatt, this is the best day ever. As he was feeding this thing hot dogs from one of the packs of hot dogs. He just catches them. It just catches them in the air with its mouth like a dog. Me and Wyatt both yelled at him to get his butt back in the house. To our horror and Sat's excitement, 2 more dog women emerged from either side of the house and come up to the porch, also begging for a snack. Now, they were smaller than the first one, only coming up to the first one's shoulders. These 2 were also very big-chested. The one was plump with some very muscular, powerful legs, but nothing anywhere like the first one. The other one was on the slim side. They had grayish-brown fur with reddish tinges behind their ears and about their faces. They had, however, had eyes like coyotes. Yellow brown eyes. We're really pounding on the living room window and yelling at him to come back inside now. But Zach's just having a ball out there. The first one had gobbled down all 3 subs in nearly a single bite, so he's down to tossing hot dogs like crazy. They were getting pretty antsy, too. They kept making these weird screams you hear them make on online videos. They were letting him pet them as well, but I can't stress it up. My brother was literally inches from a grisly death. They were making these just unholy sounding growling sounds of snapping in the air at each other when one got too many hot dogs. Zach's hand nearly got snapped a time or 2 from this. They even pawed at the air in front of his face to get his attention when he focused on one for too long, almost slashing his face to shreds if the paw got closer. Zach didn't seem to mind, though. He was having a blast. Eventually, the loud roar of a snowplow truck came down the road, plowing snow noisily, which scared them off. It was a good thing, too. He was nearly out of hot dogs. The 3 of them took off into the field as fast as the wind. We couldn't keep track of them because they were so fast. They were just like blurs. Wyatt and I gave Zach a good brotherly butt kicking when he got back inside. And that's the end of the story. Now, I'll tell you, when I first read that report, I was a bit suspicious, as many of you probably are as well. But after further inquiry, I do believe the witness. And Greene County, Pennsylvania, where Rogersville is well known for cryptid canine activity. And I've heard and read several bizarre and curious accounts from that area over the years. So if you do go to the Pennsylvania Dogman Upright Canine Interactive Matter, it is plotted out there with the link. Now, a family on an Iowa farm is spied on by a tall white humanoid with no face that lurks in the woods. The being made noises throughout the night, and they're still haunted by the incident. So the witness states, "Hi, about a year ago, I was out with my family. It was around 8 p.m. and the sun was setting. We lived in a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. The closest neighbor was far away. We live in Polk County, Iowa. Something down the field kept catching my eye, but I ignored it at first. My sister saw it too and kept looking out towards the trees. She was getting freaked out about it. My mom said to go investigating, so me and my sister, she went to investigate, so me and my sister started to walk across the field towards the tree line. Well, that was a big mistake. It's hard for me to describe. This was the most terrifying thing that ever happened to me. Now, I didn't see it at first, and I didn't understand why my sister was so scared. When we were about 100 yards away, I saw the creature. Tall, probably 8 to 9 feet tall, white humanoid with an elongated head and no face. It had long arms and peeked at us through the tree line. We stopped on tracks. We couldn't tell what it was. It took a few steps further out of the trees and swayed back and forth at me like a praying mantis. Now, me and my sister ran screaming back to the house where my mom stood, jaw dropped. She saw it too. I had never been so scared in my life. We grabbed the binoculars and watched this terrifying creature peeking in and out of the tree line, spying on us. My grandma thought we all had a wild imagination. The sun was almost gone now. It was getting dark, and the darker it got, the more it moved, back and forth along the trees. It was terrifying, so we went in for the night and locked everything up tight. I couldn't sleep that night. I heard scratching on the roof, and at one point, a very loud bang and various noises coming from the barn. I was very afraid that I would wake up to my animals missing. The next morning, my grandma asked if we heard the loud bang outside. That night, she ended up taking my grandpa with her on her morning walk. I have no idea what it was, and it still haunts me to this day. So was this a crawler humanoid? It very well could have been. But quite frankly, the way it reacted was a little different than what we normally get. Now, a reader contacted me after they had experienced what they believe may have been a glimmer man or a semi-invisible cloaked being while walking a local trail. Hello, I've been reading your post describing what you call the glimmer man. I had a very strange trail encounter with an invisible two-legged large thing while walking with my dog. Now, some of the trail sections have wooded areas alongside the walking paths. So most of the trails have wood on one side of the path and the park is on the other side of the trail. The wooded area is not very large. I'd guess about 300 feet by half a mile, so I don't consider it forest. It's just a woods. I'm located in southeast Wisconsin near Sturgeon Bay. The wooded area of the park has 3 to 4 small creeks, and I think only one of the creeks has water. Most of the trees are beautiful and normal tall trees, and some of the trees here and there look like they're kind of dead. There are always people and kids going down there, riding bikes, hanging out, and whatever else they do. So one day, around 4 p.m., I took my female dog, Jazz, for our normal everyday walk. We had just got out of the car and began our walk. We were probably walking on the trail for about 5 minutes or so when I started feeling weird after a turn. Not scared or afraid, I started to feel happy and my little pain aches had disappeared. This is very strange because I remember saying myself inside my head, not out loud, wow, I feel good. I feel like a little kid. I feel brand new. It was only about 20 seconds of this young and joyful feeling when suddenly something had to let go of a large bush that it was holding on to. The thing sounded like it was intertwined in the bush, like holding on and trying to hide. At the same time as the noise in the bush, Jazz turned towards the bush and started going after it. I had Jazz on a leash and she was dragging me, almost taking me into the woods. I had to hold her back because I couldn't see what was making all that noise. It moved through another tall bush and started stepping heavy with loud thumps. I think it fell when it made it out of the bush area. The thing was only about 15 feet away from us on the other side of the bushes and sounded like 2 very large horses stomping on the ground. I could see the bushes and grass moving, but I couldn't see anything. We moved back from the trail a few feet so I could see the clearing on the other side of the bushes to try to see this thing. And I looked right where the sound of the steps were coming from, but I saw nothing. So I looked down at the ground and I could see where 2 feet were stepping on the tall grass. I remember I said to myself in my head, no way, that's not an invisible monster. After I said that, I heard something I'll never forget. The thing started making loud T-Rex stumps. Then I said out loud, that sounds like a T-Rex in the movie. I recall I could feel the stumps on the ground. Jazz and I were just looking into the woods at the sound. I could feel my eardrums shaking badly, and both eardrums felt like busted speakers. In my head, I said, it's trying to blow my eardrums. The T-Rex stumps lasted about 15 to 20 seconds. Then the sound stopped. It just turned off like a light switch. I had no idea if it jumped into something or if it just vanished. It's strange because after all that, I still felt happy with no worry or fear at all, just curious. I wanted to see what it was. On the way home, I remember thinking that another day I would be afraid and run away from it. I heard this thing 3 or 4 times in the following days in another section of woods. I could hear someone heavily walking on leaves just inside the tree line about 30 feet away in the woods alongside me and Jazz. I would hear it, and then I would stop without turning to it, and then it would take a step or two, and it'd stop. I'd turn around a few times to see nothing because it wasn't moving. I did this a few times to make sure. I would tell myself, if a person stays on the trail, they have no permission to take you. I think I heard these steps in the woods next to me. Or one time I heard these steps in the woods next to me. I said to myself, I think it wants me to make a mistake and go into the woods toward it. After a thought that I never heard it again. And I'm sure I can hear what I'm thinking. I'm sure it could hear what I was thinking. Just a few weeks ago, I saw something very strange related to this thing. Jazz and I were walking in the same part of the trail only 100 feet away from our first encounter where the bushes were. I stopped to investigate the woods. I was standing still looking past the trees. The area was covered in a few inches of light green grass. I was looking for a kind of downhill at how the woods go down in and around the creek down there. I said to myself, it looks beautiful. The trees, the color greens, the sunlight, the shadow. It looked like a postcard. Perfect. After 2-3 seconds after that thought, while I was just looking down at the area of the woods, I saw a big human-shaped blur moving between two trees and about 80 feet away. I saw it for a split second. It was huge, maybe 10 feet tall, big head, big muscled shoulders, and I remember its big left leg. I remember its left knee and a big muscle above it. I could see the thick, shiny hair on its leg. Yes, this thing looked exactly like the predator from the movie when it was cloaked. It's very weird how your brain was able to capture this image. My memory surprised me. Its shoulders, its head, and the side of its back were reflecting the woods between him and me. It looked like a male, not a female. In my opinion, I think it took off running because I thought I was sensing that it was in the area, but I had no idea it was there. I think it knows Jazz can pick up on it if it hides a little further away from the trail. Now, I'm very cautious when I go walking near the woods now. I also tell people where I'm going. I have no idea why this thing got so close to me or what its intentions were. And I also don't know why it ran away from me at those times. Was there something or someone behind me that startled it? These occurrences were a very incredible time of my life. It changed me in a good way. I often think, I don't know, but maybe that's why dogs are on this planet, to help us and pick up on the invisible things when they get too close. Anyway, always be happy and do things you love during your life. Have no worries and certainly no fear. I hope my story helps people be alert and more careful in the world. Okay, that's the last account. So let's get to the questions here. I want to thank BearZip for their super sticker. Thank you very much. And I want to thank Mortal Clown for their donation as well. It's much appreciated. Okay, let's get to the questions. I guess Raceman Mike is the first one here. I'm really a Motorsports fan, but I lived in California for 50 years, and the Dodgers have always been a very cool team. I'm glad they're in the World Series. Well, we're not here to talk about the World Series because I don't like the Yankees or the Dodgers, quite frank with you. Again, Mike, I have never seen any paranormal. Still waiting to see something. I have a 4,000 acres behind my house, and I'm waiting for Big Fur Dogman to show up. Well, if you keep waiting and hoping for it, it won't show up. I don't know of one person who has ever gone looking for anything that ever found it or ever saw it. That's just my 2 cents. Sir Wolf, hi Lon. Have you heard of many female dog women? Must be. I've only heard of a. Oh my God. I've only heard of two, or that have been reported to me. Now I've heard people talk about them. And most people that do talk about them do talk about the blue eyes for some reason. Now, I don't know if that's indicative of the female cryptid canines or what, but I have heard of the blue eyes. So, I don't know. Bistro, Lon, do you think the cryptids are military created or Earth? Um, you know, I I don't know. As time has gone on, early on, I thought, well, maybe there was some type of involvement with a lot of these cryptids in the government. Quite frankly, as years have gone by, I really haven't seen any evidence of that or heard of any evidence of that. It just doesn't seem to me that is part of the explanation. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I just don't really believe it is. Can Squatch, any more levitation stories? Maybe a show on magic or wizards. Well, we'll see what we can do. I don't get many of those, but we'll see what we can do. Appreciate it. Any other questions? Yeah, I think what I am going to do next week, new angel tales. I don't know about that. I had to dig them up. Got a few, but yeah, I will be on Spaced Out Radio Monday night. Bistro, do you think the national parks were created for the cryptids to live? I've heard other people say that. I don't know. I doubt it because it's just too much money involved with the national parks. I mean, they are a money generator for the government. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And I can't really see that they were created at all for cryptids. But then again, maybe in some instances it could be. Lou the werewolf. Hey, Lon, have you heard of dogman sightings in Manitoba, Canada? I may have one or two. Most of the Canadian sightings I've gotten were in southern Ontario. For some reason, the Niagara area in southern Ontario, down around just west of the Niagara area, do have a lot of cryptid canine reports. Mike, how about a show about Bigfoot sightings in Washington? We'll see. Jan's Roost. Lon, Josh Gates did a show on Dogman in Michigan. Did you see it? No, I didn't. Honestly, I don't watch a whole lot of paranormal TV or cryptid TV. Unless I'm in it. No, I just don't watch a lot of it. Usually if somebody who's in it contacts me and tells me to watch it or for some reason, then I will watch it. But I don't normally do it. Any other questions, folks? I tell you, if you do have suggestions for shows, or for episodes, new episodes, or subject matter, contact me at my email, which is lonstrickler@phantomsmonsters.com, or go to Facebook and contact me there and let me know about it. Because I'm always on there, and while I'm working, I keep all that on, so it pops right up, and then I can go ahead and make a note about it. Paula, yes, Lon. What about a show about Wendigos and native myths? I've done a Wendigo show. Um, and I don't get a whole lot of Wendigo sighting reports, or those that I believe, quite frankly. But native myths, yeah, I can probably swing that one. I have I've heard a few crazy stories over the years. So Bistro. Lon, do you think CERN has anything to do with the increased cryptid sightings? Maybe. I don't know. I think, the Chicago sightings and the particle accelerator they got out there, that was part of our thinking that there could have been some type of rift opened up by that particle accelerator at the Fermi Labs outside Chicago. But I don't know. I don't know what to think about CERN and particle accelerators. Honestly, I really don't. I'm kind of I kind of caught in between with that. Jose Sanchez, like in our own ratio, there are always more females than males. What would you say is something similar for dog men and dog women? I don't know. We really don't get a whole lot of female cryptid canine reports. So, Uncaged Savage, have you come across reports often of fog or shadows associated with dogman encounters? There have been some. There have been some where there's and it's just not them. It's also Bigfoot and others as well. Some of those sightings out in Chicago with the winged humanoids have been pretty foggy too, um, especially around the airport. Thomas, been a pretty dry summer in PA. Do you think drought conditions can increase cryptid activity as they go searching for water? Um, yeah, if it is that dry, they probably will. I don't know. I don't know how dry it is out there where you are. I mean, you're out in Western PA, so it's not been too bad here, though it is drier than normal, but it hasn't been too bad here. I guess it's possible. They got to drink, so if it's something's dried up, they're going to go looking. Absolutely, but it's a possibility. Man, we got a big crowd tonight. I mentioned if because all the stuff with the winged humanoids and the Mothman stuff, that people are coming in to see if I'm going to talk about it. But we'll save that for next week. Thomas says pretty dry yet. Outcrops have been stunted pretty badly in places. Yeah, I haven't seen that here. I was looking at the silage fields today. I was up in Gettysburg, and they're pretty big. I mean, so they're going to be they're going to have a pretty good crop this year, from what I understand. But I don't know how it is out where you are. So yeah, it could be. Jan's Roost. You think sunspots or solar flares can cause paranormal activity? I haven't been asked that one before. I don't know. I don't know. I know here especially with the aurora borealis, boy, it was beautiful this year. So, but I don't know if it has anything does any association with paranormal activity. It very well could, but I haven't seen any proof or any real theories on that. Beaster, are most of most of the cryptid sightings on ley lines? Nope, they aren't. Occasionally we will get one where we can detect a ley line, but quite frankly, I don't think a lot of them are. And in fact, I think most cryptids may avoid it because of all the activity along the ley lines. Quite frankly. Uncaged Savage, would you say that many reports of dogmen are in certain locations more than others, like graves, secret places, or battlefield? Yeah, absolutely. All three, quite frankly. The battlefield Gettysburg has some cryptid activity there. You hear about Bigfoot and cryptid canines in cemeteries all the time, and other creatures as well. We did an investigation up in Ontario a while back at a settler cemetery, a huge settler cemetery, and the cryptid canine activity was crazy. So, yeah, I think there's something to that. Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming in tonight. We did have a nice crowd, and if you donated, it's truly appreciated. Your support makes all this possible. Please like, subscribe, and share. If you have a sighting encounter report and like to be considered for the show, contact me at Lon Strickler, phantomsmonsters.com. And also, you can send your suggestions for the show. Tell me what you think of the show. Tell me what you think of certain stories and such. And I'll be glad to answer you. So, until next week, and I think we will do some Chicago Mothman stuff next week. So I'm telling you right now. So until then, stay healthy. Have a great weekend. And we will talk soon. Take care.